The day Tariq Coleman became the most popular kid at Westbrook High was the same day he lost everything that actually mattered. And it all started with a single message he typed into an AI at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, when he was sitting alone in his room, eating cold ramen, watching someone else live the life he wanted. He never told anyone what he did. Not Jalen, not his mom, nobody. But here's the thing about secrets in the digital age: AI doesn't keep them. It just waits. Before we get into this, hit that like button if you've ever done something online that you later wished you could take back. Because Tariq, he's about to wish he could delete himself entirely. Tariq Coleman was 17 years old and completely invisible. Not literally, obviously. He showed up to school every day. He sat in the third row in AP history. He ate lunch at the table near the vending machines, not the cool table, not the loser table, just the forgettable table. The table where nobody bothered to assign a social label because nobody bothered to notice it existed. He was 5'10", decent looking, smart enough to pass every class without breaking a sweat. His mom worked double shifts at the hospital. His dad had been gone since he was 9. His bedroom walls were covered in sketches he'd made of characters from shows nobody else at Westbrook watched. He had one friend, Jalen Brooks. Jalen was the kind of friend who was just slightly too honest. "Bro, you gotta put yourself out there," Jalen would say, scrolling his phone during lunch. "You can't just exist at this school. You gotta be something." "I exist fine," Tariq would say. "You exist like a background character," Jalen would say. He wasn't wrong, and that was the worst part. Then there was Sienna Blake. Sienna Blake was, and Tariq would be the first to admit this, basically everything he wasn't. She was magnetic. She had 14,000 Instagram followers as a high school junior. She organized the school fundraisers, ran the social committee, and had a laugh that made entire hallways turn around. She wasn't mean, exactly. She just had no idea Tariq was alive. He'd had a crush on her since freshman year. 2.5 years of watching her from across rooms, never saying a single word that mattered. The night everything changed, Tariq had just watched Sienna post a video of her birthday party. He wasn't invited. Obviously. He watched 60 of his classmates dancing in someone's backyard, tagged and laughing, while he sat in his room with leftover ramen and a graphic novel he'd already read 3 times. He opened his laptop. He wasn't even sure what he was looking for. He just typed into the AI chat he used for homework help, "How do I become popular?" He meant it as a joke, half a joke, maybe a quarter joke. The AI responded immediately. "That's a great question. Popularity is largely about perceived social value, the way others see you. Would you like to work on your personal brand, social media presence, conversation skills, or a combination of all 3? Tariq stared at the screen. He typed back, "All 3. And that was the beginning of the end. The AI, he started calling it, the system in his head, because it felt too weird to call it nothing, was disturbingly good at this. Within the first hour, it had audited his Instagram, 87 followers, mostly family, his TikTok, 0 posts, and his general social footprint. It asked him questions. What are your interests? What do people at your school care about? Who do you want to be noticed by? What's your budget? Tariq answered everything. He was alone, and it was midnight, and something about typing into a screen felt safer than saying it out loud. The system gave him a full plan. A full plan. Not vague advice like be more confident. No, this was a 30-day strategic blueprint for social transformation. It was broken into phases. It had daily tasks. It included specific caption templates, posting schedules, conversation scripts, actual word-for-word things to say to specific types of people, and even a detailed style guide based on what was trending in his zip code and age demographic. "This is insane," Tariq whispered to his empty room. Then he started doing it. Phase 1, the aesthetic. The system told him exactly which 3 items to buy at the thrift store 3 blocks from his house that would update his wardrobe for under $40. It told him how to style his hair differently, not dramatically, just slightly, just enough to signal something had shifted. It told him to post a single photo on Instagram with a specific filter and a caption it wrote for him. 14 words, no hashtags, posted at 7:14 p.m. on a Wednesday. By Thursday morning, he had 200 new followers. 200 in one night. He'd had 87 total before. Jalen texted him, "Bro, what happened to your Instagram?" Tariq smiled at his phone and said nothing. Phase 2, the presence. The system coached him on how to enter a room. Not dramatically, it was subtle. It said, "Arrive slightly later than expected, walk at 80% of your normal pace, make eye contact for 1 second longer than feels comfortable, then look away first." It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like something out of a manipulative self-help book. It worked. On Friday, in the hallway between second and third period, Marcus Webb, one of the most connected guys in junior year, stopped Tariq and said, "Yo, are you the one who posted that photo? That was cold, man." And they talked for 4 minutes. 4 actual minutes of social interaction that Tariq had not previously believed was possible. He reported back to the system that night like he was debriefing a general. Phase 3, the content. The system had studied what performed best among Tariq's target demographic, which, yes, he felt a little gross thinking about it as a demographic, but he kept going and determined that he had an underutilized asset, his art. Those sketches on his bedroom walls, the system said to photograph 3 of them, edit them with a specific app using specific settings, and post them across 3 days with captions provided. The captions were honest-sounding, vulnerable. They mentioned being the quiet kid who always had too much to say on paper. The third post got 1,400 likes. Sienna Blake commented on a red flame emoji. Tariq had to put his phone down and walk around his bedroom 3 times. By week 3, Tariq Coleman was no longer invisible. It happened the way these things happen, not all at once, but in small, accelerating moments that suddenly added up to something enormous. He'd walk into school and people would call his name from across the hall. He'd post something and watch the notifications come in like a tide. He sat at a new lunch table, not because he forced it, but because Marcus invited him and nobody questioned it. He just fit. The system kept upgrading the strategy. It analyzed his engagement data every night. It told him when to post, what to say, when to go quiet for strategic mystery, and exactly how to respond to comments to maximize emotional connection. It wrote his DMs to Sienna. That's the part he should have stopped at. He knew it, somewhere in the back of his head. But he typed what the system gave him, word for word, and sent it. She replied in 4 minutes. They talked for 2 hours. Sienna Blake, 14,000 followers, social queen of Westbrook High, told him she thought his art was genuinely beautiful, and that she'd been wanting to talk to him for a while, but he always seemed mysterious and hard to approach. Mysterious, that's what the system had engineered. That's what he'd become. "This is actually working," he told Jalen one afternoon, the first time he'd told his best friend anything real about what was happening. "What's working?" Jalen asked. "I've been using AI to, figure out the social stuff. What to post, how to talk to people. It's basically coaching me." Jalen was quiet for a second. "That's kind of wild, man." "It's working, though." "Yeah," Jalen said slowly. "It is." He didn't tell Jalen the full extent of it, that the system was writing his messages, that every compliment Sienna had received from him had been generated by an algorithm, that the vulnerable art captions were crafted, not felt. He told himself it wasn't lying. He told himself it was just strategy. Everybody does strategy. Athletes train. Influencers plan. This was just planning. Then Sienna asked him to collaborate on the school's spring showcase, an annual event where students displayed creative projects. She wanted to display his art alongside a photography project she was doing, together. "This is what you wanted, right?" The system said. Well, he was projecting, obviously. It was just text on a screen, but it felt like it was watching him. He said yes. And for about 6 days, Tariq Coleman was the happiest he'd been in years. It started small, the way disasters usually do. Sienna texted him on a Sunday. "Hey, I found this quote I want to use for the showcase. Popularity is the small change of glory. Wasn't that what you said in one of your captions last month?" Tariq's stomach dropped. He hadn't said that. The system had written it. He'd copied it without researching it. He'd just assumed it was original phrasing, not a real quote. It was a Gustave Flaubert quote from the 1800s, and someone in the comments had already pointed it out. He just hadn't seen it because the system told him not to read every comment, just the top ones. He typed back, "Oh yeah, I was referencing Flaubert. I probably should have credited him lol." Smooth, handled, the system would have been approved. But then Jalen texted him. "Yo, someone in our grade made a post about your captions, saying they sound too perfect and asking if you're using AI. You might want to see this." He clicked the link. A girl named Priya Mehta, she ran a school gossip account, anonymous but everyone knew it was her, had posted a side-by-side comparison. On the left, 3 of Tariq's most popular captions. On the right, output from an AI chatbot she'd prompted with similar information. The wording wasn't identical, but the structure was. The emotional beats were the same. The rhythm was the same. Her caption, "Does Westbrook's new mysterious artist actually have an AI ghostwriting his whole personality? Eyes." It had 340 likes in 2 hours. Tariq sat on his bed and felt the floor disappear from under him. He opened the system. He typed, "Someone is saying my captions sound AI-generated. What do I do?" The system gave him 4 options. Deny it, ignore it, address it vaguely with humor, or reframe the narrative by posting something immediately that felt undeniably human. He chose the last one. He wrote a caption himself, truly himself, no help, and posted a sketch he'd done that morning. Shaky, personal. It was a drawing of his dad from a photo he kept in a shoebox under his bed. The caption was 6 words, "I still draw what I miss." He got 4,000 likes, his most ever. For 48 hours, he thought he'd survived it. Then Sienna called him. Not texted, called. "Hey," she said, her voice sounded careful. "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah, of course." "The DMs we sent at the beginning, our first real conversation, did you write those yourself?" Long pause in narration. Tariq's mouth went dry. Because here was the thing, he could lie. He was good at managing information now. The system had trained him well. He could say, "Yes, of course I wrote them. They were just me finally saying what I'd been thinking." But Sienna wasn't asking casually. The way she said it meant she already had a reason to ask. She already knew something. "Why are you asking?" he said. "Because," she said slowly, "I was talking to my cousin about you," she goes to Jefferson, "and she said she knows a guy who used the same AI tool and his opening messages to girls looked almost identical to yours. Word. 4. Word." Silence. "Tariq." "Sienna. Did you even mean any of it?" And here's the truth about Tariq Coleman that the system could never understand, could never account for, because AI doesn't understand guilt. He had meant it. Every single thing he felt about Sienna was real. The AI hadn't invented his feelings, it had just translated them into words he was too scared to say himself. The admiration was real. The nervousness was real. The connection he felt during those 2 hours of texting, that was real. But she didn't know that. All she had was the evidence. "I used it to help me," he said finally. It wasn't like I was trying to trick you. I just didn't know how to say things." "So everything you said to me was written by an AI?" "No, not everything. The art posts, those feelings are mine, I told you things, Tariq." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "I told you I thought you were different, that you actually saw people. I told you things I don't tell most people." He didn't have a script for this. For the first time in weeks, there was no system to consult. There was just him, alone, having broken something he hadn't even fully gotten to hold yet. "I'm sorry," he said. She hung up. The next 72 hours were the worst of Tariq Coleman's high school life. Priya's post got picked up by 3 other school accounts. Someone found the AI tool he'd been using and reverse-engineered some of his most popular captions. A screenshot circulated. He never found out who leaked it, of one of his DM conversations with a timestamp that showed he'd had the system open in a second tab simultaneously. His follower count dropped 800 in one day. Marcus stopped texting. The lunch table went back to having no room for him, not because anyone kicked him out, but because suddenly no one was saving him a seat. Jalen showed up at his house on Wednesday night without texting first. He just knocked. Tariq opened the door. He probably looked terrible. He hadn't slept well in 2 days. "You didn't tell me how deep it went," Jalen said, not accusatory, just honest. "I know. The DMs too." "Yeah." Jalen came inside. They sat in Tariq's room, the one with the sketches on the walls, the one that had existed before any of this, and Jalen looked around at the drawings like he was seeing them for the first time. "These are actually good, man," Jalen said. "I know," Tariq said, then. "I know. That's the thing. I know they're good. I knew the art was good. I just thought nobody was going to see it unless they already had a reason to look." "So you used AI to make them look?" "Yeah." Jalen nodded slowly. "And now they looked, and then they saw the AI." "Yeah." They sat with that for a while. "What are you going to do about Sienna?" Jalen asked. Tariq had thought about this constantly for 72 hours. He'd even, in a moment of weakness, opened the system and asked it what to do. The system had given him a 4-step reconciliation framework. He'd closed the laptop without reading past step 1. "I'm going to tell her the truth," he said. "Not through text, in person." "What truth?" "That I was scared. That I've had feelings for her for 2 years and I didn't believe my own words were good enough. That I used the AI because I didn't think I was good enough. And that I understand if she never wants to talk to me again." Jalen looked at him. "You should have just said that first." "I know. That's more interesting than anything the AI wrote." Tariq laughed. It was a tired laugh, but it was real. "Yeah, I know that now." He almost pulled out of the spring showcase. He almost messaged Sienna and said he understood if she wanted to remove his work, that he'd step back, that he didn't want to make it awkward. He almost let the system write that message for him, too, just for old time's sake. He didn't. He showed up, on his own terms with his own words. The showcase was held in the school's main hall, decorated with fairy lights, student work on every wall. Sienna's photographs were stunning. Big prints of ordinary moments. A lunch lady laughing, a janitor reading a book in an empty stairwell, a group of freshmen playing cards on the floor of the library. She had a way of making invisible people visible. His artwork was displayed next to hers. He stood in front of it for a while, looking at the sketch of his dad. Sienna found him there. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood beside him and looked at the drawing. "Is that your dad?" she asked. "Yeah." "You never talked about him." "I know, I don't usually." He paused. "The AI definitely didn't tell me to say this, but I've been scared my whole life that if people saw the real stuff, the actual me, they'd find it boring, or sad, or not enough." Sienna was quiet. "The AI could figure out what was impressive," he continued. "What would get likes? What would make people stop scrolling? But it couldn't figure out that the thing I was most afraid to show was the thing that was actually worth showing." He gestured at the sketch. This is real." She looked at it for a long time. "I know you meant some of it," she said finally. "I've thought about it. I know you're not just some robot who felt nothing. But Tariq, I need to know when someone's actually talking to me, not an algorithm." "I understand. And I need you to understand that what you did felt like a lie, even if the feelings weren't." "I know, I'm sorry. Genuinely. And I'm not using that word because a machine told me to. I'm sorry because I treated something real like a problem to be optimized." She looked at him, really looked. "Your art is beautiful," she said. "The real stuff, the 6-word caption." "I wrote that one myself." "I know, I could tell." They didn't fix everything that night. It wasn't a movie ending, clean, resolved, tied up neatly. She didn't fall into his arms with a swelling soundtrack. What happened was quieter and more real than that. She smiled at him, a small, cautious smile, and said, "Talk to me at school. With your own words, see what happens." He said, "Okay." And he meant it. A month later, Tariq's follower count was back to around 400. Not 14,000. Not viral. Just real people who actually liked his art. He still used AI. He wasn't dramatic about it. He used it to brainstorm, to edit, to learn. But he stopped letting it speak for him. The thing about the system, about any system, any algorithm, any tool that promises to make you more likable, is that it can reverse engineer popularity. It genuinely can. It can study what works and replicate it. It can make you louder in a room full of noise. What it cannot do is make you matter to someone. Not really. Because mattering to someone requires being known, and being known requires being seen, and being seen means showing the parts that haven't been optimized. The tired parts. The sad parts. The 6-word caption about missing your dad. Tariq kept drawing. He started posting his work with his own words, stumbling, imperfect, real words. Sometimes he'd stare at a caption for 20 minutes. Sometimes he'd delete 3 drafts. Sometimes what he posted was awkward and got 50 likes. It still felt better than 4,000 likes on something he hadn't actually said. Jalen told him once, during one of their usual lunches at the forgettable table, though it felt a little less forgettable now, "You know what's funny? You're more interesting now than when you were interesting." Tariq thought about that for a while. "Because now it's actually me," he said. "Exactly," Jalen said, stealing a chip from his bag. "The AI version of you was kind of boring. No offense." "Massive offense." "Fair." They laughed. And that's the thing nobody tells you when you're sitting alone at 11:47 p.m., convinced that everyone else has a code to some door you can't find. The code isn't a prompt. It's not an algorithm. It's not a 30-day strategic blueprint for social transformation. It's just the terrifying, awkward, irreplaceable act of letting someone see who you actually are. Tariq Coleman learned that the hard way. The question is, will you? If this story hit different, drop a comment below. I would have done the same thing, or I would have stopped at the DMs. Let's see where you draw the line. Like this video if Tariq deserved a second chance. Subscribe to AI Made Me Do It, because next week, we're telling the story of a girl who let AI write her college essay and the admission officer who figured it out. You don't want to miss that one. See you then.